All right, well, as requested, I am going to make a video to remind some of you the important things about solving equations. So here we go. First of all, we're going to start with just a couple basic one-step equations up here. When we solve an equation, remember our goal is to get x by itself. We want x to have a coefficient of 1 or whatever variable we're solving for. And we're going to use our inverse operations to do that. So my first example, I have an x plus 3 equals 9. So I know that 6 plus 3 equals 9. So mentally I can solve this problem. But algebraically I would like to use inverse operations. So since I have a plus 3, I have to subtract 3 from both sides, because 3 minus 3 is 0. So all that's left on the left side here is the x. And over here, 9 minus 3 is 6. So x equals 6 is our answer. And then remember, we can check it. 6 plus 3 does equal 9. Okay, over here, 5x, that means 5 times x. So the inverse operation of multiplying is dividing. So if I have to divide by 5 on both sides here. So 5 divided by 5, this fraction right here simplifies to my 1x. And negative divided by a positive is going to be a negative answer. And 25 divided by 5 is 5. So x equals negative 5. Then remember, you could check that one too, 5x. And that means 5 times negative 5. And that does equal negative 25. Okay. This one on the right side here is another one-step equation. It's the same thing up here, except for that I have a negative 3x. But it's still a negative 3 times x. So the inverse will be division still. Whatever you do to the left, you must remember to do to the right. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 equals 1, x. And 4 divided by 3, since 4 is not divisible by 3, we're going to leave that as the fraction 4/3. So we get x equals negative 4/3. All right, now on the left here, we got a two-step equation. So our goal is still to get x by itself, but before we can do anything with this x, we have to add 4. Since it was a minus 4 or a subtracting 4 or a negative 4, whatever you want to think of it as, the negative 4, so the opposite would be a positive 4. The minus 4, so you add 4 to both sides, because negative 4 plus 4 is 0. So all that's left here is 2x, and then 10 plus 4 is 14. Then we got a 2 times x, so the inverse of that is dividing by 2. So x equals 14 divided by 2 is 7. All right, as I continue, remember you could fast forward through the video and skip to specific examples if you're looking for that, or go back and watch this again as well, and pause it as you go and try them on your own, and then watch the answers. So we're going to get a little bit more complex now. We're going to have to start by combining like terms. We do have a minus x here, and one thing that's helpful is to not only rearrange this, but then instead of writing it as a minus x, sometimes it's helpful to write it as a plus negative x. And then we have a plus 7 and a plus 4. That equals 25. Then we are going to combine our like terms. Remember, those are terms that are the same. And then this negative x means negative 1x. So 3 plus negative 1 is 2x. And 7 plus 4 is 11. And that equals 25. I'll draw my balance line here so I remember whatever I do on the left of that line, I also have to do on the right. So now I'm going to want to isolate this x variable here. Before I can do that, I need to take care of this plus 11. So I'm going to start by, since it's a positive 11, I'm going to start by subtracting 11 on both sides. And then here the 2x comes down, 11 minus 11 is 0, so that's gone. And 25 minus 11 will give me 14. Now 2x means 2 times x, so the inverse of times is to divide. So divide both sides by 2, and we get x equals 7. All right. Now I'm going to do an example that involves the distributive property. The distributive property is when you have a coefficient in front of a group or a parenthesis. You have a quantity here, -3 times the quantity of x plus 2. So your first step is going to be to distribute that -3. So first you take the -3 times the x and you get -3x. Then you take the -3 times the +2 and you're going to get -6. And that equals 6. Now I can solve from there. I want to isolate the x variable, so first I'm going to take care of this -6. The opposite of -6 is adding 6, or the inverse. So I'll add 6 to both sides. I'll bring down the -3x. -6 plus 6 is 0, so that's gone, and 6 plus 6 on this side is 12. Then you have -3 times x. We're going to divide, and we have to divide by -3. And you'll have to do that on both sides. -3 divided by -3 is just that 1x, and 12 divided by -3 is -4. All right, more distributing property. Notice that this one has distributing on both sides of the equation. So that's going to be your first step, and you're going to have to do it on both sides right away. So 2 times x will be 2x. 2 times 3 is going to be +6. Over here, when you're distributing a fraction, you're taking 1/2 of 8. So 1/2 times 8 over 1 will be 8 over 2, which is just 4. Half of 8 is 4. So 1/2 times 8 is 4x. And then half of 4 is 2, or 1/2 times 4 over 1 would be 4 over 2, which is 2. But it was a -4, so oops. It will be 1/2 times -4 is -2. Now notice that we have variables on both sides of the equation on this one. So our goal is going to be our whole goal here is we want the x to be on one side and then the number to be on the other. It doesn't matter which side you move the x to, but you want the x's on one and the numbers on the other. So I think I'm going to start by taking care of this +6. You can start with the x's if you'd like, but I have a +6 here, so I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. The 6 will go with the -2 on this side, since that's also a constant, doesn't have a variable with it. These are the like terms on this side. So over here, all that's left is that 2x, that comes down. This 4x comes down. And then remember that this -2 is the same thing as plus -2. So you have a -2 and a -6. So you should have a total of -8, because you're combining those and they're both negative. Since I moved my constant numbers to the right side, I have to move my x numbers to the left. Since this is a +4x here, I will need to subtract 4x from both sides. And a +2 minus a 4 is going to be a -2x. And then this equals 0, the 4x minus 4x. So all I have here left is the -8. So I'm almost done. Then I have -2x. So I have to divide by -2 on both sides. And -2 divided by -2 will be 1x. -8 divided by -2 will be a +4. Remember the pass rule. Positive answer when the signs are the same. So when you have a negative times a negative, or a positive times a positive, you always have a positive answer. Just another example, when you have variables on both sides, remember the goal is to get the x's on one side and we want x equals some number. So x equals 2 would be an example. Not sure what this one for sure equals, but I'm going to start again by moving the number right here. It's a -6, so I need to add 6. I'm going to add 6 to 8 since those are like terms. The 3x will come down. Here this x comes down, and 8 plus 6 is positive 14. Then I have an x right here. That's a 1x, and it's positive. So to move it to the other side, I will have to subtract a 1x. So 3x minus 1x will be 2x, and then x minus x is 0, so just the 14 will come down here. Then 2 times x, so divided by 2 on both sides, and 2 divided by 2 is 1x. 14 divided by 2 is 7. I haven't checked my answer in a while, but remember you always can go back and check it. 3x means 3 times x. So that's going to be 21 plus -6, which will be 21 minus 6, 15. And then on the other side, I had x plus 8, so 7 plus 8, which also equals 15. So since those are equal, 7 is in fact our answer. So that was a good quick way to check to make sure that you got your answer correct. Okay, this problem not only has variables on both sides, but it also has some like terms. So since it has like terms on the same side of the equal, the first thing you're going to want to do is combine those like terms. And remember, when you're subtracting, that is the same thing as adding the opposite. So you have a -2 plus a -4 plus a -x equals a -3x plus 8. That makes it a little bit easier for us to see that -2 plus -4 is -6 plus -x Then if I want to start here again, I have a -6, so I can start by adding 6 to both sides. I'm doing inverse operations because -6 plus 6 is 0, so just the -x comes down. Then I'm going to have a -3x plus 14. Then this time, since I moved the constants to the right, I have to move the x's to the left, except for that this is a -3x, so I am going to have to add x's this time to both sides. A -1x plus a 3x will be a positive 2x. -3x plus 3x is 0, so just the 14 comes down on that side. And 2x, so divide by 2 on both sides, and we get x equals 7. And that's all. I hope this was helpful. Thanks, guys.